In my last video, I told you what was the best time to go get your hormones tested, whether you were in perimenopause or premenopausal times and still cycling, or if you were postmenopausal. In this video, I want to tell you about what hormones you should be testing. Most of us women don't know. We might think, oh, just estrogen and progesterone, that's good enough, but it's not. When we want to get a really good picture about what is happening hormonally speaking to you, then we need to get a full panel done that addresses all of the key hormones that could be influencing your system at this time in midlife. So starting, of course, with estradiol and progesterone and testosterone. Those are your three main sex hormones. We want to test those on day 19, 20, or 21 if we're cycling. If you're not cycling, you can just test anytime. The other ones that we want to see is follicular stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. These are really great markers to see just how far into the perimenopausal or menopausal stage you're in. For instance, FSH is going to go up, follicular stimulating hormone goes up the older we get and the farther into menopause we are. And there is a correlation between where our FSH number is and weight gain in perimenopause. So we see that FSH, if it gets above 20, that there is a correlation between weight gain and that number. And so those are really good markers to take because we can put them up against, for instance, your estrogen and progesterone numbers. Luteinizing hormone is more about ovulation, and the FSH is going to stimulate a follicle to come out, and it stimulates estrogen production, to put it as very simply as possible. Luteinizing hormone is more about progesterone and about your ovulation. So if luteinizing hormone is also high, then that can tell us that your body is struggling to ovulate. We can put these numbers up against your progesterone and estrogen so that if maybe you're just a little bit kind of in between, you're not too low, but you're definitely not too high with your estrogen and progesterone, we can look at your FSH, for instance, and if it's above 10, and your estradiol numbers are subpar, we know then that your body is really starting to head into menopause and that we can start taking some action to help prevent some of the symptoms that come with that. So those first five, really, really important. From there, you want to get a full thyroid panel. Now, very few doctors will actually do a full thyroid panel. Most will just do TSH. Some will do TSH and T4. But what we really, really want to see is that free T3. That is the active thyroid hormone. And we typically see T3 going down as women hit midlife. It's very, very common. This is a reflection of your metabolism. We don't want free T3 going down. So we want to test TSH, free T3, free T4, if possible, reverse T3, thyroid peroxidase, and thyroid globulin. Now, those last two you could do without, and you could always get them done if you did see a problem with your thyroid markers, because those last two, TPO and TGA, are markers for Hashimoto's. So this is an autoimmune condition where your body is attacking your thyroid gland. So if there is an issue with the thyroid markers, we really do want to see, is this being driven by an autoimmune condition? Because we would address it differently. But if possible, just have them all done at once. Reverse T3 is also really important, but places like Canada, we don't test for it. You have to actually pay out of pocket, and you have to usually get it done through a naturopathic doctor, and they will send that blood down to California to actually test for reverse T3. Now, reverse T3 is an inactive thyroid hormone, and it is really important to see if there is hypothyroid found. So once again, just like the antibodies, we could do that one post-scene if there is a thyroid problem. But if you can get them all done at once, great. It's a lot easier than you're not going back to the lab for a second time. So if you can do it all at once, great. Besides the thyroid markers, we also would like to see DHEA sulfate, because this is a marker that really helps us to be insulin sensitive. It's very supportive of the adrenal system. It's a pro-hormone, which means it helps to make other hormones like testosterone and estrogen. It's also an aging hormone, which means that as we age, DHEA sulfate starts to go down. And so we really do want to catch it, because we can supplement with DHEA, and it can help with adrenal function, and it can help make those other very key hormones. SHBG, you must get that one tested when you're doing blood work. What's SHBG? It is sex hormone binding globulin. This is a protein that primarily binds to testosterone, and then after that, it'll bind to estradiol. So if your SHBG is high, that tells us that your hormones are getting bound up by this protein, and you won't have a lot of free and available hormones for the cells to use. And so you could look like you have these really great estrogen and testosterone markers levels, but if your SHBG is high, then it tells you that those two hormones are getting bound up, and you're actually not getting them as much as you should be. And so there's different things that you can do to lower SHBG, so you can free up some of those very necessary hormones. Things like thyroid medication, fasting, low protein, low carb diets will raise SHBG. So it can be a common thing to see on labs, because fasting, low carb diets are, of course, all the rage. So if you've been following those types of diets for a long time, carnivore, keto, fasting a lot, you may have an elevated SHBG, and it could be affecting your cycle, and it could be affecting your hormone levels. So we always want to test that when we're testing blood levels of hormones, because through blood, you can't test free, unbound hormones unless it's testosterone. Yes, just one of those things that the guys get and the women don't typically. So you can test via blood free and total levels of testosterone, but they don't typically test for free and total estrogen, estradiol specifically, and they will only test total estradiol levels. So we really want to see what is free and available, and we can tell somewhat by looking at that SHBG number. The other thing that I always want to see is a metabolic panel. So we want to see what your fasting blood sugar, hemoglobin A1C is, as well as fasting insulin. Insulin and your sex hormones have a bidirectional relationship. I've done podcasts about this that you can listen to on the Hormone Solution Podcast. But basically, insulin and estrogen, testosterone, thyroid as well, actually, progesterone, they all interact with each other, which basically means if one's too high, it can raise the other, or if one's too low, it can raise the other. They just go back and forth in these bidirectional relationships. So we really want to see, what is our blood sugar doing? How could it be impacting our other hormones? And then how could these other hormones possibly be impacting the insulin and blood sugar? For instance, thyroid, when your thyroid is slowed and you have hypothyroidism that isn't being treated, you can have more insulin resistance because of that. With your estrogen, estradiol specifically has a direct relationship with our blood sugar. It helps us to be insulin sensitive and to process blood glucose. So if estradiol is low, we can see blood sugar going up. And so we want to correct that with either bringing in some estrogen, but also helping our body to get insulin sensitive through diet and other means. Cholesterol, you want to do a lipid panel. It's another thing that I see that's really, really common is women that are losing their hormones in menopause or have lost their hormones in menopause. I see their bad cholesterol, LDL, going up. And so we want to be able to have a baseline of, oh, okay, we see that this is out of range, it's too high, and you've got no sex hormones. Let's bring in the hormone replacement therapy, and in 3 to 6 months, let's recheck those lipids and see if it's helped to correct them. So I really like to see all of that. I also like to see a CBC panel with differentials, which is just a very basic blood workup, where we can just really see what's going on with the immune system, gut health, liver health, things like that. So those are kind of my base hormones and other blood markers that I like to see in women that are looking to get to the root cause of their hormone imbalance or their hormone deficiencies.